Welcome back to the Grind, Sleep, Repeat podcast. Today's episode is going to be about fat loss for hybrid athletes.
Yeah, this is a super awesome topic that I'm really excited to dive into. We both train as hybrid athletes. We both have dieted training like hybrid athletes. For a wedding a couple of years ago, my goal personally was get to 8% body fat, and I was training like a hybrid athlete. We were also in the process of training for a half marathon. And throughout that process, we learned a lot of things that worked, a lot of things that didn't work. So we want to go over a lot of the mistakes that we've made in our own personal programs and things that we see with our clients, and give you the full structure on how you can still lose body fat while training like a hybrid athlete. It's something that a lot of times is really focused on performance, but you definitely can almost body recomp or lose fat. But the whole goal is to still keep your performance high and still focus on bare minimum holding on to your muscle mass, but ideally trying to build strength and muscle while you're still in a deficit.
And just to be clear with what hybrid training is exactly, this can look different for everyone, but it's combining strength training with some sort of cardio, whether that be running, biking, swimming, rowing, and then combining that into your training program along with strength training.
Yeah, and it's really hard because, like I mentioned earlier too, there's such a performance aspect of hybrid training where, you're trying to, if you're running, you're trying to improve on your running, and you're probably logging a lot of miles. But then also you want to focus on building strength and muscle because there's also an aesthetic piece to it as well. And that's where that fat loss goal may come from, is more of like a body composition aesthetic look. And it's hard to balance those two things. So I think the first place we should start is the diet. We'll talk about training, we'll talk about programming, we'll talk about how to structure things up there. But let's talk about the diet first, because I think that is a really important piece that if you can get correct, it's going to help you execute all the other parts of the program, and it's really going to set yourself up for success.
Yeah, when it comes to the diet, you want to make sure you are definitely prioritizing your protein, which is something we repeat over and over again. But what that looks like is getting that 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per body weight. And then when we are trying to get into that fat loss phase, we want to make sure we're targeting fat. That's why we don't say weight loss, we're saying fat loss, being specific towards really trying to target fat loss. And sometimes when we get too aggressive with the diet, we can tap into our muscles. So we want to make sure we start with a less aggressive approach. And with that being said, we're going to start with that like 250 calorie deficit from what your maintenance calories are. And from there, you can also build. If you start too aggressive, you don't have much you can take away. And then you're already implementing in your cardio and strength training, so you don't have much to give as well.
Yeah, training like a hybrid athlete, you're doing lots of movement, lots of activity throughout your entire week of training. So you're already burning a lot of calories. And if you're hybrid training, that means that you're strength training. You probably have some muscle mass. So therefore, your basal metabolic rate is going to be a lot higher than the average person. So you're going to be able to eat a lot more food than you might think. And I think a lot of times I see people constantly, I get on consults with people on the phone that are looking to start online training and online coaching with us, or we meet people here at our gym. They come in for a consult and they're like, man, I'm stuck. I'm just not seeing the results I want to see. And I take a look at their diet and they are in a really aggressive caloric deficit. And when you do that, your body's going to be so resistant to change. So everybody's very different. We're going to give you some guidelines on how you can structure your diet, how to structure the percentage of carbs, fat, protein as a general recommendation. But if you are looking for a specific custom macro calculation, we do have a free resource on our website. I have the link down in the comments below. You can go click on that link. You can fill out a form. It will actually do a free macro calculation for you. This would be a good place to start and give you an idea of how you should really structure your carbs, your fat, your protein, and how many overall calories you need to be eating. Because like I said, if we're not eating enough food, your performance is going to suffer. If we're eating too much food, you're not going to lose fat. So you have to be in the perfect spot. So we'd love to help you out. Go check that out after you're done listening to the podcast today. Like I said, the link is down in the comment section below. I think that a good place to start, like Alyssa mentioned, is your protein. That's one of the most important things, is to make sure that when we're in this fat loss phase, because when we're training the hybrid athlete, we're running or we're doing a lot of conditioning. So the risk of losing muscle mass might be a little bit higher than the average person that is just doing strength training. But as long as we keep our protein high, I would say, like Alyssa said, at least zero point 0.8 to 1 gram of protein. It's going to tell your body to hold on to muscle mass. It's going to help you recover between your workouts. And it is a crucial piece to being able to hold on to muscle mass. Because, like Alyssa said, we don't just want to lose weight, we want to lose body fat.
Yeah, so with that being said, that's gonna be about 30% of your daily intake coming from protein, and then leaving us with a remainder of 25% in our fats and roughly that 40 to 45% in our carbs. So a lot of people too will see that and be like, "Holy cow, that's a lot of carbs." But if you are training in this hybrid style, your body needs those carbohydrates. We need those carbs to, give off energy and help, these help perform in these intense workouts, but also keeping those fats high enough where we can sustain appropriate hormone levels as well. And with that being said, also, as far as, being strict with a diet, we do have to be tracking our intake because you need to be consistent with what you're eating. Otherwise, you're going to see this yo-yoing of your weight fluctuation, which is also natural, but we can't help you unless you're being consistent with that diet. And I always tell people to follow at least that 80-20% rule where keeping 80% of our foods from whole foods, less processed foods, and then that 20% where we can maybe bring in more things that we enjoy.
Yeah, we do our weekly check-ins with our online training clients, and even here at the gym, if you're new to the podcast, me and Alyssa, we own a gym in Nebraska where we work with personal training clients, group training clients, nutrition coaching. Whenever we're meeting with someone, whether it's in person or online, or we're doing our check-ins weekly, people will say that, I'm struggling to eat enough food, or, the calories that you've given me might be higher than they're used to. But, it works. You have to still be in a caloric deficit. So you can't eat more food than your body's burning. You're just going to gain weight. You can't eat far less because your body's just going to hold on to weight. So, when we're doing these weekly check-ins with our clients, we provide these macros, but then we also want to see how the adherence to the program is going. So like Alyssa mentioned, 80% of the time, if we're giving you macros, we want those foods to be structured around whole food sources, things like good lean protein sources, things like good carbohydrate sources, things like potatoes, rice, oatmeal, whole grain breads, fruit, that type of stuff. Because like Alyssa said, when you're training like a hybrid athlete, you're using a lot of those carbs, the glycogen in your muscle, for an energy source. So there's a big stigma around like carbs are going to instantly turn into fat. And, I'm constantly meeting with people and they are not eating any carbs in their diet. And they're wondering why they have really low energy or they can't seem to make progress. And just want to get that out there that carbs are not bad as long as they are intentionally structured, as long as they make sense in your program, you're hitting the correct amount and then also a good source of carbohydrates. So we're not talking about like donuts and Twinkies and cookies. We're talking about high quality carbs that are going to fuel your workouts and help you bring the intensity. And that intensity in your workouts is what's going to help you make the changes that you want to see in a mirror. It's going to help you see the changes that you want to see as far as your mile pace time or just improving overall as a hybrid athlete. So carbs are good. Don't be afraid of carbs. And that's something that we are constantly repeating to our clients, both in person and online. So that's something that I can't emphasize enough, that carbs are not bad. It is, as long as there is structure and as long as your diet program is blended with your workout program that makes sense towards your goal, you're going to see the progress that you want. We actually do, obviously, we have a gym here in Nebraska, but we do actually offer online training as well. So if you're somebody that is looking for more structure, if you just want to chat more about what we offer, we love to set up a time for a phone call. We have a form also down in the description at fitgrindformula.com. You can fill out that form and we can set up a time to chat because, like I said, that's what we do all day long is create the structure and hold people accountable to work towards their goals.
Yeah, not only is it important to pick good quality carb sources, but it's also important to prioritize eating those carbs around your workouts. So we're not smashing potatoes right before we go to bed, trying to prioritize those carbs, like I said, around the workout and incorporating things like gels or, a quick carb source, a dextrose, um, something that's gonna be utilized and we're able to use that carb source easily and quickly, or simple sugars, simple carbs like bananas, fruits, things like that, that we can digest quickly and again use right away. And you know, things like potatoes and rice and things like that for throughout the day are things that are going to keep you full and satisfied, but we want to make sure we spread that out throughout the day as well. So we're not saving up these carbs like late at night. I know people always say like no carbs at night, and I'm not saying no carbs at night. I'm saying spread your carbs out throughout the day. Don't save your 100 grams of carbs for, your pasta dinner right before you go to bed when you worked out at 6 a.m., it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And everybody's so different too. That's what I really love about coaching and creating programs for people is everybody's so different and there's that like general stigma, like you said, don't eat carbs before bed. There's actually clients that I would have them structure carbs before bed. Say that somebody is going on a 5, 6, 7 mile run in the morning, every single morning. Yeah, I'm gonna have them eat carbs before bed because they're not gonna get up and eat something before a run. It's just gonna sit in their stomach like a rock. It's okay for that person to have carbs in the evening
Beautifully
because they're
said.
gonna be broken down, stored as glycogen, and they're gonna use that in the morning. So there's not always this like one size fits all. And that's what I really love about custom coaching and training here at the gym is everybody's program can look so different. There's no right and wrong. It's just what is right and wrong for your goals and your specific program. And what are you really looking to accomplish? There has to be structure that's really customized to that specific goal or your multiple goals that you might have. But, don't be so close-minded to think that just because there's this general recommendation of, not eating carbs or not eating before bed or eating 8 times a day is going to boost your metabolism. Like there's things that work, there's things that don't, but there's a lot of different ways that you can structure things in your program. So nothing is right, nothing is wrong. It's just whatever works for you and whatever's going to help you reach your goals.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're somebody who right now is like, I'm not eating any carbs, this isn't something that I would necessarily throw at you right away. I would say to slowly incorporate the carbs and bring those carbs up slowly. But like I said, if that's you and you're somebody who's currently keto or really low, and if that works for you, great. But if you're someone who's like, yeah, I'm curious about tapping into utilizing more carb sources, then it's something you want to slowly build up to.
Yeah. So that's kind of our general recommendation on the diet. If you guys have questions on the diet, just let us know in the comment section. We'd be happy to help you out. Let's get into the strength training piece next because it is such a big, important piece of hybrid training.
Yeah, you want to make sure you are prioritizing your strength training when training hybrid. So, just to give an example of what that would look like for maybe more of an intense hybrid athlete, we're doing 4 days of strength training and then 2 days of cardio. And with those cardio days, depending on if you're training for something or not, if you're just doing, a hybrid training split for just overall health, functionality, things like that, I would recommend doing a more longer steady state run. And then on the other cardio day, more of a high intense, sprint interval run. And like I said before, it doesn't have to be a run. This could be biking, rowing, whatever that looks like for you. But speaking, from what we specifically do, we incorporate running.
Yeah, and as far as the strength training, it's such an important piece to your overall body composition, being able to still build strength and build muscle and really blend strength training conditioning into a program. And it's going to be such an important piece to hold on to muscle. So, like I said, this podcast all about fat loss, hybrid training. Our goal shouldn't be to lose the most amount of weight possible. It should be to lose the most amount of body fat while building or maintaining muscle. And if you're just dropping weight like crazy and you're getting weaker in your lifts and you have low energy, that is a big red flag that you are losing muscle mass and you need to rethink your approach. So, strength training is super important. And I think you still have to have the same mindset that you would if you were trying to build muscle that I'm going to go into the gym, I'm going to lift heavy, I'm going to have purpose and structure in my workouts, and I'm not just going to wing it. I'm not just going to follow random workouts that are different every single time. I need to follow a structured plan because that's what's going to help you hold on to muscle mass. But ideally too, like you can still build strength and you can actually still build muscle while you're losing body fat. I see it all the time here in personal training clients and group training clients. I see it all the time with our online training clients. It definitely can happen. You're not going to put on like 20 pounds of muscle while you lose 20 pounds of fat. That's just not going to happen. But you can still build strength and muscle while losing body fat. As long as you keep things heavy, you're trying to focus on getting stronger, and there's a structured approach. And like Alyssa mentioned, you might have anybody listening to this podcast, there's going to be a lot of different goals. Everybody's very different with their fitness level, with their personal goals, how much time they have. Some people training hybrid like to run and lift every single day. Some people, they don't have that much fitness time that they can delegate. So they have one workout a day and they blend running and lifting into their program. Everything works. It's just you have to figure out how much time you have. And then from there, figure out what is the most important thing to you. If you're training for a race right now, you're probably running a little bit more. If you're trying to build muscle and build strength, you're probably lifting a little bit more. Or if you're like, I want to have both, you might have an even balance. It can look so many different ways. But the main thing, like Alyssa mentioned, is you have to have enough strength training days. And then also you have to focus on getting stronger, focusing your workouts around those big compound movements. So at the beginning of your workout, I would pick at least 2 compound movements that you're trying to track, you're trying to get stronger at for each muscle group each week. So say, for example, I was coming and I was going to train legs. Maybe I'm going to try to focus at the beginning of my workouts on a back squats, and I'm going to focus on a Bulgarian split squats or a back squat and a Romanian deadlift, like 2 compound movements that you can get stronger at each week. And then you have other accessory stuff that you're also still trying to get stronger at. But if you can do that, you're going to hold on to muscle mass. If you lighten things up and you start cutting your carbs back way too much and you're not eating enough and you're overdoing your cardio, that's where you're going to lose strength, you're going to lose muscle, and then you're not going to like the way that you appear in a mirror.
And with all of that being said, the main goal here as a hybrid athlete is going to be performance. So if you're lacking in your performance, your strength training, your cardio, go back to the drawing board, and maybe you're not eating enough. Maybe you're not recovering enough. Maybe you're doing too much. Jordan and I have both been there. And when we first started hybrid training, we definitely were doing too much because we were not willing to give up the weight training. And we were trying to train for this, half marathon. So we knew that we had to increase this intense amount of running volume, but at the same time, we were not willing to let go of the strength training portion. And I think, that was from experience, you do too much and it causes injuries. Like both of us became injured at one point because of that.
Yeah. I think, and we also had a really extreme body fat goal. Like I was trying to get to 8%. Olivia was at like freaking not far off of that. No, she's like 14, 15%. Like, so we were trying to do way too much. We weren't eating enough. And we also were dropping really low on body fat. And anytime that happens, for men, I can speak for myself. Once you start to get too far below 10% body fat, you're going to notice decrease in performance and strength, no matter who you are. That's just the way it works. So you do need some fat on your body. So just realize that whatever goal you're setting, just don't think that you can cut to 5% body fat, look freaking shredded, and you're going to be strong as hell. You're going to hold on to all this muscle. Oh, and you're also going to be a really good runner. All those things aren't necessarily going to flow together. So figure out what your most important goal is and structure the program around that. And with that said, if you have a really low body fat goal, you might expect some performance to drop off. So when you're training hybrid and you're trying to lose fat and you're in a deficit, you got to realize that the only optimal amount of training is the amount of training that you can recover from. So if you're doing your workouts and you're just constantly not recovering, it's not positive. You're just breaking your body down. So, the less is more approach is very effective on the strength training. Even if you're strength training like 3 or 4 times a week, you can still build muscle and strength 3 or 4 times a week. I have plenty of clients that are doing it. The main thing is the structure. It's a structured program. We're not just guessing. We're not taking a shot in the dark on what exercises, what reps, what rest time, how much volume, all those types of things. We're managing those and we're manipulating variables up and down.
Effort.
Yes. And the effort is there. That's what really matters when we're talking about strength training. And that kind of leads us into our next point is managing the fatigue, and the recovery is so important as a hybrid athlete because, yeah, you can run 50 miles a week and you can strength train 3 or 4 times a week. But if your diet is not up to that, and two, if you haven't taken the time to slowly build that volume up over time, you're going to get injured, you're going to be wrecked, and you're not going to make progress. So managing your fatigue is something that is super important, and just taking a objective picture of what is my body responding to, and what is it not responding to, and am I constantly getting hurt? Am I constantly getting injured? I have these little nagging injuries that come up left and right. Have I not gone up on any of my main compound movements in weeks, months? Those are really big signs that you are not recovering properly. And little minor tweaks to your program can make a huge difference to where you can start making progress again. Because no one wants to come to the gym, put all this effort in, and then not see any returns on that. That would not make any sense. Like, it'd be the same thing in the stock market. You wouldn't want to invest for your entire life and at the end of your life have nothing to show for it. So you want to make sure that your effort that you're putting into your workouts, the effort that you're putting into your diet is helping you see the positive changes both in the mirror and in your strength and performance and just overall appearance. You want to make sure that those things are positively impacting you.
Recovery can go in so many different directions too. So making sure we're getting good quality sleep, and that looks like that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, getting in good quality stretching routines, things like that, warm up and cool down, and we're getting in movement on the days that maybe we're not working out. We don't want to sit on the couch and be a couch potato. We still want to prioritize movement. That stuff is healthy. And also supplementation. So this was a big one too for us personally when going through that transition into hybrid training and training for our half marathon. We started doing our supplements because we found this to be such a big key to our performance. So the protein is a huge recovery aspect. If you're not getting enough protein, you are going to feel that the next day. If you come back into the gym the next day, you look back and you're like, holy cow, I only ate 90 grams of protein and you weigh 130 pounds. You just, cut yourself short 40 grams there and you're going to feel that. If you aren't replacing and rehydrating your body with an electrolyte supplement, and you're dehydrated, you're going to have these flu-like symptoms, which we also have experienced. So that's why we took the time to get into the supplement world, because we realized really quickly how important it is to prioritize our supplements.
Yeah, we only create products that we fully believe in and that we'll take ourselves. I think if you're a hybrid athlete, protein powder, electrolyte, and then greens, you can benefit
Mhm.
from all three of those. The protein, you can use it as a snack meal replacement to help you hit your protein goals. The electrolytes are huge. They're going to help your performance. They're going to help replenish the electrolytes because you're going to be pushing out electrolytes constantly, even if you're not sweating. Every time you lift a weight, every time you have a muscle contraction, you're using and losing electrolytes. And then our grains just make sure that you can maintain a healthy immune system, that you're getting the micronutrients, you're getting 5+ servings of leafy green vegetables every day so that you don't get sick all the time and you can't consistently train. If our immune system sucks and it's compromised because we're not eating enough of the leafy green vegetables, which no one is, you're going to get sick. It's going to be hard to stay with your program. And over time, that's going to affect your progress. So those are 3 supplements that we truly believe in, that we take ourselves on a daily basis. So if you guys would like to check those out, we'll leave the link also down in the description with a discount code. You can go check it out and see which one you like best. Our chocolate protein, pink starburst electrolytes, which are freaking bomb, and then our mixed berry greens. So they all taste great. You can check them out. Like I said, the link is in the description below. Overall, the managing your fatigue and recovery is really going to show as you progress into a program. And I think if you're not taking an objective look at how is my body responding over time, I think it's very easy to constantly be in a state of like overtraining, because overtraining doesn't happen overnight. It's something that it takes time to build up those symptoms, but there's very easy symptoms to identify: lack of progress, lack of motivation, you're getting injured all the time. If you're seeing things like that, maybe your program just isn't structured in a good way to reach your goals, or maybe you're just not eating enough. Maybe we need to look at the diet. So if you find yourself in that situation, we can definitely help you take an objective look at your program and build a program around your specific goals. That's what we do for a living. We help people every day in person and online. So we'd love to help you too if you are looking for more help. But overall, the biggest thing that I could say is just make sure that you have a program that's structured, that you're not just winging it, that you're constantly tracking things. And if you can do that, you're going to see all the progress that you want.
I hope these tips were helpful for you if you're a hybrid athlete and you're looking to lose fat.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, guys, just let us know down in the comment section below. We'd be happy to help any way we can. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.